Good evening and welcome to ACP Connect. I'm Patrick Zacher. I'm president of ACP Council. We're so glad that you're able to join us today, either in person here in Calgary or online across Alberta. Before we begin, the Alberta College of Pharmacy respectfully acknowledges that we are gathered on Treaty 7 territory, the traditional lands of the First Nations people, and Métis Region 3. The roots of many modern medications come from the Indigenous peoples' traditional use of plants from these lands. Tonight we're here to discuss leadership in pharmacy. Of course, when it comes to pharmacy, licensees are the quarterback of the pharmacy. They are responsible for the operations of the pharmacy, but licensees and pharmacies can only be successful if everyone on the pharmacy team steps up in their own way within their roles to be leaders. Throughout the evening, we will be discussing the keys for licensees to be successful in their roles, but also exploring the ways other regulated members can contribute by being leaders as well. We will hear from ACP Registrar Brad Wilsey in a moment. Brad will set the scene for us by recognizing the challenges that licensees and pharmacy teams are currently facing. There's been a lot of change in pharmacy lately, and teams are navigating their way through these changes. Brad will also look at the relationship between licensees and the proprietors and the importance of ensuring pharmacy teams have the resources they need. Next, we'll hear from Deputy Registrar Kay Moran, who will look at the importance of the licensee's role. Kay will review some tools, documents, and resources that are essential to help licensees and pharmacy teams excel. Kay will be followed by ACP Compliance Officer and Policy Lead Monty Stanowich, who will provide some practical advice to licensees and pharmacy teams to be successful, especially in relation to the new standards for the operation of licensed pharmacies, which took effect on February 1st. Then Deputy Registrar Jeff Whistle will discuss ACP's new Continuous Quality Improvement Program, CQI+. We'll learn about key activities of the program that will be required of pharmacy teams and why this is also important. After our presentations, we'll have a short break, then we'll conclude the evening with a panel discussion led by ACP Communications Director Barry Strader. This will be your opportunity to ask questions of our panel on all things related to pharmacy leadership and the successful operation of your pharmacies. We will be monitoring the chat on YouTube as well, so virtual attendees will have the opportunity to join the conversation as well. It's now my pleasure to introduce ACP Registrar Brad Wilsey.
Thanks, Patrick. Welcome everyone to our ACP in-person virtual ACP Connect meeting. Thank you for sacrificing your evening to spend it with us. It's much appreciated. We get not enough opportunities to speak directly with our registrants, so this is really a special evening for us, and thanks very much for sacrificing your evening and to spend it with us. Well, as you know, the pharmacy profession has experienced significant changes over the past couple of years. We've had challenges with funding. We've had increased workload in dispensing activities and clinical activities, and we've had new and increasing expectations on pharmacy teams from Albertans looking for enhanced health services. On top of that, ACP has introduced some new standards. The standards of practice for pharmacists and pharmacy technicians, and the standards for operating licensed pharmacies. In addition to that, we have introduced our CQI+ program, and we've updated our standards for virtual care. And if that wasn't enough, we've also made some other policy changes around compounding repackaging agreements and introduction of a new licensee proprietor education program. I'm just going to advance my slide. And training requirements for pharmacists who choose to administer injections for children over the age of 2. And then we've got requirements around CQI+, which is our program to ensure continuous quality improvement and enhance the safety and quality of pharmacy care in Alberta. So I guess when you think about that, that's a lot. That's a lot on pharmacy teams. And we recognize that the implementation of the new standards and introduction of new programs and other changes result in updates and requirements that impact all pharmacy teams. All of that to say, we recognize that pharmacy teams have a lot on their plates. And I want to reiterate that we appreciate everyone's efforts as we all strive to meet and exceed expectations and uphold excellence in pharmacy practice. So thank you for the great work. In these times of change, leadership is more important than ever. And that means leadership at every level. We have leaders by titles, such as proprietors and licensees, but it is also so important to recognize that every member of the pharmacy team can play a leadership role. From taking initiative to supporting colleagues to striving for excellence, leadership is embodied by so many pharmacy professionals. And that's why I want to take some time this evening to discuss with you the many forms of leadership and how it may apply in pharmacy practice. I can tell you that high-performing pharmacies have strong licensees and the full support of their proprietors. They have high-functioning teams that are empowered to excel. The benefits of strong leadership are innumerable, but ultimately in pharmacy, it all comes back to empowering your team to provide quality, person-centered care. In turn, ACP has to be there for licensees and pharmacy teams to offer the resources and support to them, to empower them. It is essential that licensees and proprietors can effectively fulfill their roles with current and comprehensive knowledge, competencies, and skills. In 2024, we reintroduced our licensee and proprietor education programs to support licensees and proprietors and to help them succeed in their leadership roles. It is our goal to enable licensees, proprietors, and pharmacy teams to build knowledge and to support them in their respective roles to enable the pharmacy team to function at the highest possible levels. I want to reiterate that leadership is not about holding a formal title. All pharmacy team members can, should, and do provide leadership in the pharmacy. From the newly defined operations supervisor role to compounding supervisors, there are some leadership roles in the pharmacy that have a title, but there are also so many opportunities for leadership that are not defined by a title. Maybe it's a pharmacist taking the initiative to complete the licensee fundamentals program in LPEP because they want to learn more about leadership. Maybe it's a pharmacy technician submitting their name for a role on council. Or maybe it's a newly practicing pharmacy professional applying for a leadership development award to further their training in a specific area. The bottom line is leadership can take many forms. So let's have a look at some examples and see how they may apply in pharmacy practice. Let's start with clinical leadership. When you demonstrate clinical leadership, you stay up to date with evidence-based medicine to ensure you and your team are making informed decisions. You continually advocate for person-centered care. You lead initiatives to reduce medication errors and improve patient outcomes. I've got a problem with the slide here, one sec. Operational leadership includes opportunities such as identifying inefficiencies in workflow and proposing solutions to enhance productivity. It means leading by example and following protocols and promoting best practices and fostering a culture of accountability and continuous improvement. Mentorship and education. One important aspect of leadership is to mentor, support, and educate your team and your colleagues. Leadership means finding opportunities to train and mentor junior pharmacists, pharmacy technicians, and students. It could also entail providing continuing education sessions to keep yourself and your team updated on new treatments, guidelines, or technologies. So essential to foster professional development and career growth for your team and colleagues. We can all succeed when we learn and grow together. Advocacy and policy leadership. As leaders, one important role is that of an advocate. It is important to advocate for pharmacy-related policy changes within your company, at the regulatory level, and within government. You can also consider other leadership roles, like applying for nomination for ACP Council or representing your profession in other capacities. There are a number of these types of opportunities to serve as a representative and ensure the profession's voices are heard. More broadly, we all have a role in promoting the roles of pharmacists and pharmacy technicians in improving health care access for Albertans. Innovation and technology. In a world where technology is constantly evolving, leadership in this area is essential. As a leader, you can lead the adoption of new pharmacy technologies to enhance medication management and patient care. And a good example of this is our CQI Plus program. Now is the perfect time to take the lead on implementing a new technology in the pharmacy. A successful pharmacy team is one that is supported and empowered by leaders. It's fostering a positive and inclusive team culture by supporting collaboration and open communication. It's recognizing and celebrating team achievements to boost morale and motivation. In a busy pharmacy environment, sometimes team morale and culture building can get overlooked. I really encourage every leader in the room to make this a top priority. Having a strong culture of support, empowerment, and collaboration in your team is essential for the well-being of your pharmacy team members, and in turn, will only serve to strengthen your patient care. Community and public health leadership. As leaders in the healthcare sector, each of us has a responsibility to be an advocate and an educator. We all have the ability to be educators, sharing our pharmacy expertise with patients and our community about disease prevention, medication, and lifestyle changes. Community and public health leadership will make a difference not only for your patients, but for your entire community. Research and quality improvement. One thing about pharmacy practice is that there's always something new to learn. And one important leadership attribute is a dedication to lifelong learning and quality improvement. It's so important to continually seek out learning opportunities and keep our knowledge and professional skills up to date, as well as to support our coworkers, colleagues, interns, and students in their learning. In your own practice, leading quality improvement projects that enhance medication use, patient safety, or healthcare outcomes will allow your team to provide better patient care. A commitment to lifelong learning and willingness to embrace change will help you succeed in your role and will make you a better leader. I'd like to close on one final aspect of leadership, the importance of which cannot be overstated. The ability to lead ethically and professionally is the underpinning of good leadership. When we act with honesty, integrity, fairness, and equity, and hold ourselves and others accountable, we have that strong set of values as the basis of our leadership. Upholding high ethical standards in decision-making and patient interactions is essential. As leaders in the healthcare sector, we can and should serve as role models in maintaining professionalism and integrity. We have reviewed many of the important elements of effective leadership in pharmacy practice, and I hope some of these have resonated with you. I recognize things are challenging, and this is no easy task. There are many competing responsibilities, and there are so many great leaders in pharmacy who are working hard to manage these responsibilities and continue to deliver great health care. And I thank you for that. I'd like to now turn things over to ACP's Deputy Registrar, Kay Moran. And Kay is going to look at the role of the licensee and provide an overview of the helpful resources that are available to help them be successful to help you be successful in your role. Over to you, Kay.
All right, good evening, everyone. As the leader in the pharmacy, licensees play a critical role in every pharmacy across the province, providing leadership and oversight for their pharmacy team. They are responsible to ensure patient needs are being met and that operations of the licensed pharmacy, the practice of regulated members, and the work of unregulated employees occurs in accordance with the legislative framework, including our standards. Achieving consistent, high-quality practices in pharmacies across Alberta is highly dependent on the leadership shown by their licensees. Licensees help to set and maintain the tone for their pharmacy team. They set direction, serve as an example to others to follow, and lead their pharmacy teams to success. The licensee fulfills many roles and has a number of essential responsibilities in the pharmacy as they interact with their pharmacy colleagues, other healthcare professionals, members of the public, and other interested parties. On the screen, you can see a few of the key competencies and behaviors that are core to the role of a licensee. In order to successfully fulfill their roles, licensees must have a leadership mentality because it isn't just about a title. Leadership is a frame of mind that drives behaviors. The first step is to embrace the value pharmacy professionals bring to healthcare and to see the possibilities within the professions. From there, the licensee has to ensure their team is supported and empowered to practice effectively. Part of this is ensuring there are structures and processes in place that will enable effective practice. But more importantly, it is about creating an environment that empowers pharmacy professionals and supports their success. The key to good pharmacy practice is the people, the pharmacy team. Being empowered to lead, to practice to their full scope, and to recognize their value as healthcare professionals. I want to take a moment to recognize that pharmacies are busy places, and licensees are busy people. Managing all of these responsibilities is certainly a challenge. There are a number of tools and resources to support you. So I want to take some time this evening to review some of these tools that will help you to succeed in your role as a licensee, as well as other pharmacy team members, to make sure that ultimately serving patients can occur effectively. This list, while not comprehensive, provides an overview of some of the tools, documents, and resources that are essential to help licensees excel in their roles. I'm going to take a closer look at each one of these on the following slides. The Licensee's Competency Framework is a useful guidance document for licensees. It outlines the competencies and behaviors that are core to the role of a licensee, but that are also flexible and can be individualized. In this way, the competencies can be applied to a broad range of practices across varied situations and are adaptable to change. Many pharmacies have supports in place to help licensees fulfill their responsibilities. However, it doesn't matter how many tools you have, the licensee themselves needs to see their role in leading their teams, coaching and mentoring the team, finding opportunities to delegate functions throughout the team. Each licensee will have different areas of strength and opportunities for improvement. This framework can help licensees identify areas where they want to focus efforts towards improvement. But this isn't just a framework that can help licensees. Anyone who is interested in taking a leading role in the pharmacy can benefit from using the framework to define their goals and plan for their improvement. We know that many of you who choose to attend these sessions do so because you are leaders in your pharmacy teams, regardless of the title that's on your name tag. I encourage each of you to use this framework to support you in your personal professional development. It will pay off not only for you, but for your colleagues and for your patients. It truly can have a ripple effect. In October 2024, ACP launched the new Licensee and Proprietor Education Programs. The 3 programs are designed to ensure licensees and proprietors review the information required for their specific roles, understand their responsibilities, and ensure their knowledge is current. These programs are mandatory and must be completed before applying to renew the 2025-26 pharmacy license. So if you haven't already completed your course, now is the time. These programs are designed to be applicable and useful and incorporate activities and case-based scenarios modeled on common situations and challenges. Completing the relevant program will not only ensure you are ready to renew your pharmacy license on time, it will better prepare you to lead your pharmacy team and to practice in compliance with ACP's new standards and the Licensee Competencies Framework. Many of you may have completed Part A or B or perhaps even both of the previous licensee education program. These new programs have been reimagined. Even licensees with years or decades of experience have described learning new things and finding benefit in completing the new program. Now let's take a look at a few resources to help ensure the physical specifications of the pharmacy meet requirements. First, we'll look at the foundational requirements. These guidelines were developed in 2018 and help pull together various parts of the regulatory framework to help clarify expectations for the physical infrastructure of the pharmacy. We know reading the Pharmacy and Drug Act and the Pharmacy and Drug Regulations is not top of mind for busy clinicians and pharmacy leaders. Yet, the expectations remain. This document helps to summarize the regulatory framework. It describes the requirements and offers guidance about how to satisfy the requirements. This document is particularly helpful for someone who is looking to open a new pharmacy or renovate an existing pharmacy. It describes the elements that must be considered in order to design a pharmacy that will meet the requirements for a license to be issued. This tool is related to the Foundational Requirements Guidelines. The Pharmacy Inspection Checklist is a great tool for licensees who are new to a pharmacy and want to make sure they have a good understanding of the areas of their responsibility. Additionally, it's useful for those who are preparing for an upcoming inspection. This tool can be used to help identify areas for improvement in the pharmacy so that those areas can then be prioritized to be addressed and close any gaps that have been identified. This tool isn't just for licensees. Any member of the team can review this checklist to help feel more prepared for an inspection and proactively ensure the pharmacy is structured and operating in compliance with the regulatory framework. The licensee needs to consider all the what-if scenarios that may impact a pharmacy, from the absence of a licensee to renovations to staff sickness or maybe even minor flooding. There are a number of scenarios that may require a planned or unplanned closure. According to the standards, it's the licensee's responsibility to be prepared, and resources like the pharmacy closure plan are there to help. The standards for the operation of licensed pharmacies require the licensee to develop a documented plan to ensure continuity of patient care in the event of planned or unplanned pharmacy closures or a loss of records or access to records. ACP has developed the pharmacy closure plan as a tool to help licensees or temporary pharmacists in charge prepare for instances when a pharmacy may need to close. This tool can help plan for patients' notification, how patients can obtain their prescriptions and access their records of care, how these records can be transferred and kept secure, and more. This is another tool that can be helpful not just for licensees, but for any pharmacy team member, especially those interested in emergency preparedness. Reviewing this plan and ensuring the pharmacy's policies and procedures are sufficient for these scenarios is a good way for a pharmacy team to support the licensee in making sure everyone on the team is prepared for the unexpected. I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to remind everyone that the period for which a pharmacy may operate without a license under the direction of a temporary pharmacist in charge is now 60 days. If conditions cannot be met to obtain a new licensee in that time frame, this is one example of when a pharmacy closure would be required. Anytime you're planning to make any physical changes to your pharmacy, including any changes to the physical facilities, proposed use of space, or layout, this is considered a renovation. Any pharmacy renovation requires advance notice and approval by ACP prior to implementing these changes. ACP has encountered several pharmacies that have made physical changes without applying for a renovation. Perhaps you're looking to repurpose an unused space into a counseling room, or you're adding more space to your compounding room. Any of these types of renovations require an application to ACP before the renovation takes place. The Floor Plan Requirements Guide is an invaluable checklist that will help you ensure your pharmacy's physical space meets legislative requirements and helps prepare you for the renovation. Without a licensee, there is no pharmacy license. You are critical members of the pharmacy team. I just want to reiterate that licensees play a crucial role in Alberta's pharmacy landscape. Domain 2 of ACP's new standards for the operation of licensed pharmacies overviews a few essential leadership roles for licensees as leaders in the pharmacy. In accordance with the standards, licensees foster a safe and inclusive work environment, enable and empower pharmacy teams, make essential operational decisions for the pharmacy to benefit the patient's health, lead by example, mentor and enable team members to practice to their full abilities, and empower pharmacy teams to provide quality, person-centered care. The importance of this work cannot be overstated. Patients across the province benefit from your dedication as essential leaders in the pharmacy. I will now turn things over to Monty, who's going to take a closer look at the new standards for the operation of licensed pharmacies and to discuss some of the changes in the new standards.
Thanks, Kay. Hi, everyone. My name is Monty Stanowich. I'm the Policy Lead and Compliance Officer for ACP. And I'm going to speak tonight about the new standards in the context of leadership. So the standards of practice for pharmacists and pharmacy technicians was the topic of our last ACP Connect sessions in the fall of 2024. So tonight we're going to focus on the standards for the operation of licensed pharmacies, or the SOLP. So to be clear, both sets of standards have a leadership focus with an entire domain in each set dedicated to that topic. The difference is the audience of the standards. While the standards of practice are directed at regulated members, the SOLP is aimed at licensees and proprietors. But regardless, leadership is just part of the role of every regulated member practicing in the pharmacy, and not just the licensee. So pharmacy is a very volatile and rapidly changing environment, and these standards are written with that in mind, to address some of the issues that are relevant to modern pharmacy leaders. So by now, everyone should have had a chance to look at both sets of standards since they've been enforced since February 1st. But just a quick note on the format and layout. You'll notice the SOLP mirrors the standards of practice. Both use the same visual framework. There's a wheel, 6 domains in the SOLP, and there's 8 domains in the standards of practice, all organized around a central concept, person-centered care. So the consistency in the structure here is intentional. It reinforces the idea that leadership in pharmacy operations and leadership in clinical practice are aligned. Whenever possible, the domains in the SOLP and the standards of practice overlap. This is creating common language and common expectations. So the SOLP defines the obligations of licensees and proprietors, since these are the individuals who lead the operational environment. So Jeff is going to speak later, speak more about CQI, continuous quality improvement, later in the evening. But I want to use it now as an example about how leadership threads through both documents. So CQI exists in both sets of standards, but the expectations are tailored to the role. The licensee is expected to lead the development and maintenance of systems that support CQI. The regulated member is expected to engage in those systems and to contribute to them meaningfully. So essentially, you're seeing the same standards from 2 different perspectives, like flip sides of the same coin. And this perspective highlights why it's so important to be familiar with both documents. Licensees need to ensure that conditions for success exist, and regulated members need to understand their professional obligations and recognize when these conditions are absent, as well as having the confidence and the opportunity to voice these concerns. So this is leadership on both sides. It's not just about having authority, it's about creating alignment across roles, ensuring accountability, and advocating for the resources and systems that support patient care. I want to briefly touch on person-centered care, because some may wonder why this belongs in a document about operations. And the answer is quite simple. Operational decisions directly impact the quality of patient care. As a result, as with the standards of practice, each standard has an outcome standard associated with it that you're trying to achieve, and that typically relates to patients and patient care. So a licensee who champions person-centered care demonstrates leadership by considering that philosophy in every operational decision, because every operational decision affects patient care. In other words, person-centered care is not just the responsibility of practicing regulated members, it's also the responsibility of those who design the environment in which this care takes place. So we're going to speak to a number of key changes introduced by these standards. These changes were made in response to evolving pharmacy practice and to the evolving leadership roles within pharmacies. So the first change I want to speak to relates to professional independence, judgment, and integrity. It relates to proprietors not imposing conditions or quotas on regulated members that may compromise their professional judgment. So while this standard may look new to some, the previous standards also had this requirement. What's really new here is the concept of a quota is specifically called out and defined. In the standards, a quota means a requirement or expectation to achieve any measurement of professional services or of revenue obtained from professional services provided to patients. So to be clear here, and quotas notwithstanding, neither licensee nor proprietor have ever been permitted to apply conditions that compromise a regulated member's professional judgment. This is the core principle of the autonomy of pharmacy professionals, and it ensures that business objectives do not override clinical judgment. For leaders, whether you're a licensee or a regulated member, this standard highlights the need for a practice environment where ethical practice is of utmost importance. Pharmacy teams deliver care that prioritizes patient well-being. So you've had some questions and comments saying, well, you can't effectively performance manage your staff in that case. And while it is true that performance management can't be linked to a quota that requires a targeted number of professional services or revenue that requires professional judgment, it doesn't mean you can't measure employee performance. There are things that can and should be measured. Number one, assessing the skills and knowledge of regulated members. Number 2, reviewing the quality of patient care they're providing. And number 3, measuring their compliance with the legislative framework and with the legislative framework, including these standards. Oops. And just back to the last point there, the points mentioned about that. So organizational specific metrics are fine to measure as well to measure performance, as long as these metrics don't directly influence clinical decisions. So the next topic is practicing remotely. So SOLP acknowledges the evolving landscape of pharmacy services, and it speaks to offsite practice that occurs either in person or virtually. So in-person offsite services allows for the provision of services at locations outside of the pharmacy, services like flu clinics. This standard ensures that care is accessible where it's most needed. Now, in terms of virtual offsite services, this means providing virtual care to patients from a location outside of the pharmacy. Regulated members are permitted to ensure continuity of care when the pharmacy is closed or in the event of emergency. Regulated members are not, however, permitted to routinely provide virtual care to patients from outside of the pharmacy. This means if you get a critical lab result back, you can and should contact the patient even outside of pharmacy hours. But it also means that a call center model where pharmacists call patients from home or from another location is not routinely permitted. When it occurs within the pharmacy, virtual care is fine as long as it complies with the SOLP, the standards of practice, and the standards of practice for virtual care. And whether in person or virtual, licensees and proprietors have a responsibility to ensure that regulated members who practice off-site have access to any and all resources required to safely and effectively provide care. So other healthcare professionals. The SOLP acknowledges the long-standing practice of having other regulated health professionals like nurses or dietitians practicing as members of the pharmacy team. This standard supports interprofessional, team-based, person-centered care. So I think this is a good example of practice driving policy because this is a long-standing occurrence. I can remember having dietitians work in the pharmacy on a contract basis over 20 years ago. What the SOLP does now is provide some direction around this activity, and it contrasts it against having a healthcare professional who's independently providing professional services. In those cases, that situation is addressed by different standards around shared premises, and that type of practice cannot occur from inside the pharmacy. So how do we tell the difference? Well, there are 4 key requirements that define what practicing as a member of the pharmacy team looks like. First one is leadership and oversight by the licensee. So this is foundational. Any non-pharmacy health professionals practicing on site must do so under the direct leadership and operational oversight of the licensee. So does the licensee need to directly supervise the other healthcare professionals? No, not really. They're responsible to their own scope of practice. But the licensee needs to ensure that they are authorized to do what they're doing. Number 2 is collaborative practice. These professionals are not working independently of the pharmacy team. They're integrated members. That means there's shared decision-making, communications, and alignment on patient goals. Number 3, compliance with pharmacy policies and procedures. So when working in the pharmacy, these professionals must follow your policies and procedures. Everything from documentation to infection control to how they engage with patients. And finally, number 4, ownership and accessibility of records. So all records generated from these other health professionals are pharmacy records. This ensures all regulated members in the pharmacy can access these records, and patients understand their health records are pharmacy records and they're held in the pharmacy. So if any of these criteria can't be met, the other health professional cannot practice them within the pharmacy, and the shared premises standards will apply. So these standards speak to the separation of practices and of resources. So think of your kind of typical medical clinic pharmacy example where they're adjoining, but they're separate businesses. So this model requires strong operational leadership. As licensees, you're not just overseeing another professional, you're responsible for integrating them into the pharmacy in a way that meets the pharmacy standards and supports person-centered care. So operations supervisor, this was kind of spoken to by Brad a little bit already. So the SOLP introduces the position of operations supervisor. It's a formal role in the pharmacy that supports the licensee by taking administrative, managerial, and operational responsibilities. So the role was created to reflect the increasing complexity of pharmacy operations and the need for delegated leadership. The role can be held by either a pharmacist or a pharmacy technician. This reflects trust in the skill set of technicians as operational leaders, and the hope is too that it'll foster collaboration between the professions. It's a leadership role with clear oversight. The operations supervisor functions under the direction and oversight of the licensee, who remains ultimately responsible to ACP. So there are parallels to the compounding supervisor here. A compounding supervisor provides leadership in compounding. Operations supervisor is accountable for helping ensure daily operations meet the regulatory and organizational standards. And to be clear, this role is not about direct clinical care. It's about ensuring operations run smoothly, operations meet the standards, operations support the provision of quality patient care. Now, technician leadership roles are more common in institutional practices, but there hasn't been much of an opportunity for techs to lead in community pharmacy. So consider this an opportunity for licensees to build leadership within the pharmacy using team members from either profession. So unregulated employees, supervision of unregulated employees. The SOLP introduces clarity around the role, limitations, and supervision of unregulated employees in the community pharmacy. While unregulated employees technically include janitorial staff and IT staff and that sort of thing, these standards relate to the role of pharmacy assistants. So the supervision, this supervision is a key operational area as leadership matters because these team members interact with patients and contribute to day-to-day operations. For unregulated employees, the concept of direct and indirect supervision have been removed and replaced with two new key concepts: critical steps and independent double checks. So critical steps, these are steps in a workflow if performed incorrectly, could pose a significant risk to patient safety. Regulated members identify these steps, and unregulated employees must not proceed beyond them without a regulated member checking their work. This is because if work proceeds beyond a critical step, it's impossible to ensure it was done correctly at the end of the activity. A simple example is just checking a stock bottle and DIN number when filling a prescription. It's a critical step that requires a double check because once the stock bottle is put away, it becomes far more difficult to ensure the right pills are in the bottle. So making this a critical step ensures a hard stop occurs in the process at that point and allows the opportunity for a regulated member to come perform that double check before they can proceed. Now, just kind of a note about what an independent double check means. So it's expected that pharmacy assistants will check their own work before proceeding. So there's your first check. But because they're not regulated, all the accountability rests with the pharmacist or the technician. So an independent double check must occur of the unregulated employee's work by a regulated member. So that's it. So they do their check, and then a regulated member comes over and does the double check to make sure that it's done correctly. So the concept is not intended to mean a pharmacist check or a tech check, though feel free to do so if you have the resources. So this standard was actually added to add flexibility to workflow. Unlike direct supervision, you don't have to stand there watching an unregulated employee work. They can work somewhat independently while the regulated member attends to other matters. And then when a critical step is reached, the regulated member can come over, perform the double check, and then the work can proceed and they can go back to doing what they were doing. So the next change speaks to addressing patient concerns. So this change to the SOLP emphasizes that addressing patient concerns is not just about reacting to complaints. It's about proactive leadership in continuous quality improvement. The standards outline what's needed to establish a formalized patient feedback and concerns process. This isn't optional. It's part of what a high-performing, person-centered pharmacy looks like. It's also not just about complaints. Patient feedback can include praise, suggestions, or observations, all of which offer valuable insights. Remember that all patient feedback is an opportunity for learning. Leadership also means that this feedback leads to action. This means feedback is integrated into policy, into training, or into system changes that improve operations. The standard also achieves person-centered care by supporting patients to feel confident that their voices are heard and that their feedback is welcomed. Another change has to do with homeopathy and homeopathic medications. So under the updated SOLP, pharmacies must now ensure homeopathic products are displayed and advertised separately from drugs, or else they're clearly marked with appropriate signage. So why does this matter? The separation of homeopathic products from drug products helps to prevent misinterpretation by patients. When displayed side by side, it can falsely imply that both types of products are equally effective or evidence-based, which is often not the case. The standard aligns with our duty to communicate clearly and honestly with the public. When patients see a product in a pharmacy, they're going to assume that it's endorsed by health professionals. As professionals, we're expected to promote treatments that are supported by credible scientific evidence. It's our responsibility to avoid endorsing or appear to endorse products that lack that evidence. So really, this standard is not about telling licensees and proprietors how to display their products. It's about professional integrity. It speaks to the principle that operational decisions must be ethical and support patient care. And finally, from a patient perspective, the goal of the standard is to support patients as they make informed decisions for themselves and their families. So there are also some changes made about compounding services. So currently, or previously, pardon me, all pharmacies were required to compound at least level A. Now pharmacies are no longer to perform any compounding if they don't want to, including level A compounding. This change was made because ACP recognizes the diversity of pharmacies across Alberta and the increasing complexity of compounds. But there are responsibilities associated with this choice. So access to compounds must be provided. Pharmacists must ensure patients have access to required compounded products, either by compounding themselves, as they've always done, or by purchasing them, buying them through an agreement with compounding pharmacies. If the pharmacy can't provide a compound due to its complexity or patient time constraints, they may refer the patient to another pharmacy on a case-by-case basis. But simply having a policy that says, a blanket policy says, we don't compound, go somewhere else, is not acceptable. Your pharmacy must be able to provide compounds. Now, pharmacies that do not compound make a formal declaration to ACP. And it's important to note that with this declaration, you're either in or you're out. And once you've declared you will not compound, this means you cannot compound. So even a simple one-to-one cream mixture, for example. If a patient shows up with a one-to-one cream and they can't wait for you to order it in, you'll need to send them elsewhere. So if you're in a rural or remote location, you may want to consider if you want to continue to be prepared to do level A compounding, even if 95% of your compounds are purchased from somewhere else. So real-time integration. Now this is the only standard that's not in full force right now. Pharmacies have until July 1st, 2026 to have real-time integration in place. By RTI, this means both drug information and immunization information are uploaded in real time. Alberta Health assures us that all software vendors will be able to meet these requirements in time. So think of this beyond compliance with the regulation and use this as an opportunity to improve your patient care. By uploading in real time, this ensures that all other health professions have access to more accurate information. A good tip is to start early. Even though this is over a year away, it requires planning and engagement with Alberta Health and with your software vendor. Netcare has indicated the process takes them some time, and they have limited resources, so they're not going to be able to manage 500 pharmacies all applying in June of 2026. The change requires leadership because it's not just a simple IT upgrade. It's a foundational shift in your workflow and how you provide patient care. So you may wish to speak to others that have already adopted RTI to better understand what the transition looks like, so you can plan for the required changes to your pharmacy. Artificial intelligence. So I want to spend a bit of time talking about AI because everything today seems to be impacted by AI, and pharmacy practice is no exception. AI has made its way into pharmacy workflows. We're already seeing AI used to assist in transcribing or recording patient information, to support documentation, and to help source clinical information for decision making. And the SOLP and the standards of practice, neither one of them specifically provide any standards around AI. So this means leadership is essential both in choosing whether to use AI tools and setting expectations for their safe, ethical, and appropriate use if you do choose to use them. So even without AI-specific standards, all the standards of practice and operations will still apply, and leaders must ensure that any AI used in the pharmacy aligns with them. So 3 key considerations here: privacy and confidentiality. Any AI used to handle patient data must meet the same standards as any other technology under the Health Information Act. It must be included in the pharmacy's privacy impact assessment. Confidential patient information must be protected, and if you don't know whether your AI application is doing that, then don't use it. In terms of clinical judgment, AI can inform, but it should not decide. Regulated members maintain full responsibility for their clinical decisions. AI in practice supports and informs decisions, but it can't be allowed to make them. Finally, informed consent. So patients need to be aware if AI is being used in their care, and more than that, they need to know how it's being used and what this potentially means for their health information. The bottom line is AI can be a huge time saver. It can review and summarize vast amounts of data to inform decisions. It's intended to support regulated members, not to compel them or replace them as clinical decision makers. Remember, as leaders, that the absence of standards does not mean the absence of accountability. So with AI, you need to set guardrails for use and ensure that if it is being used, it enhances patient care. It enhances professional integrity and patient trust. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Whistle.
Thanks very much for that, Monty, and good evening, everyone. As mentioned, my name's Jeff Whistle. I'm one of the deputy registrars. For some reason, they're always making me go last at these presentations. I assume they're saving the best for last. In fact, Patrick even refers to me as the anchor. I think you meant that positively, right? Yeah, no, thank you, Patrick. Anyways, it's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to share your evening with us. So I have the good fortune to share with you tonight a few updates about ACP's new Continuous Quality Improvement Program, or CQI Plus. And I'm excited about CQI Plus because it's really an evolution of our previous drug error management program. So while the program is new, many of the activities that relate to patient safety and quality care that pharmacy teams are used to remain part of CQI Plus, especially as this relates to documenting and assessing errors and close calls by pharmacy teams. What's changed is that CQI Plus incorporates a greater focus on prevention and empowering a strong, positive safety culture in pharmacy. CQI Plus is complementary to the standards, as Monty already highlighted in his presentation. Domain 6 of both the standards of practice for pharmacists and pharmacy technicians and the standards for the operation of licensed pharmacies is entitled Continuous Quality Improvement and describes what pharmacy teams are required to do to both prevent and respond to practice incidents in the pharmacy. CQI Plus will support you and your pharmacy team in meeting the standards moving forward. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of CQI Plus, I want to talk about why it is the work that each and every one of you do every day to prioritize your patients and create a safety culture in your practice is important. It matters, and I know all of you in this room take great pride in practicing safely and to a high standard. And on the slide here, you'll see 3 people. These are Melissa, Roxy, and Kathy, who are members of our CQI Plus patient working group. They've been involved since the beginning in the development process for CQI Plus, and they bring expertise which is critical for this program. They or their family members have experienced a medication error. Some of you may recognize Melissa Sheldrick on the far side there. From our last ACP Connect in the spring of 2024. We were joined by Melissa, who shared her story of tragedy and loss as her 8-year-old son, Andrew, tragically died as the result of a medication error made in their pharmacy. This is the unthinkable for any parent, any family, and for the healthcare professionals who had to go through it as well. We wanted to learn from what our patient working group members had experienced, both the good and the bad, so that the development of CQI Plus could be informed through their experiences. In doing so, our goal was to create a program that was person-centered. And we all here got into healthcare to help our patients and to make a difference in their lives. No one sets out to make an error that results in harm to the patient. And so when errors occur, especially those that result in harm, the patient suffers, the family suffers, but we also as healthcare professionals suffer as a result of the air. CQI Plus gives you and your pharmacy team the opportunity to fulsomely learn not only from the air, but also airs from your colleagues. This in turn provides the opportunity to be proactive and prevent errors before they can happen. So what's new about CQI Plus? So CQI Plus is really focused around 5 key activities for achieving success. The first is prevent, the second is respond, the third is analyze, the fourth is improve, and then critical to the success of each of these activities is the need to communicate. In order to successfully carry out these activities, pharmacy teams need to be empowered by a safety culture, which you see at the center of our CQI Plus diagram. So the activities here, they describe what we do in this program, but safety culture is who we are as pharmacists and pharmacy technicians and pharmacy teams. It's the beliefs and attitudes we share as a team about patient safety. Pharmacy teams are already familiar with the concepts of responding to an incident when it occurs, analyzing for contributing factors, and implementing strategies to improve the safety of the care that they provide. While CQI Plus enhances these pieces and maintains them, we also introduce some new strategies to improve the capability of pharmacy teams to really make a difference in their care. First, we modernized the framework around quality improvement that the Alberta College of Pharmacy has had for some time. This means that we were sure to capture the full scope of pharmacist practice and pharmacy technician practice. That's why you'll see us use the term practice incident rather than medication incident to encompass that full scope of practice. Importantly, we're also introducing technology to enhance the process for documenting practice incidents and close calls. These tools support identifying trends over time in your practice, and each pharmacy will be able to choose their own platform that best meets their individual needs. Second, we've placed emphasis on being proactive around identifying gaps and issues within practice. Each pharmacy will have a tool called a safety self-assessment that they will use to inform improvement strategies within their own practice. And then finally, CQI Plus is focused on reducing the stigma and fear around errors and placing focus where it can have the most impact, and that is the opportunity to learn. Gone are the days of blame and shame when it comes to medication errors. The technology will support us here as well because each platform will help pharmacy teams submit anonymous reports to a national database of community pharmacy incidents called the National Incident Data Repository for Community Pharmacy, or the NIDR. So our previous or possibly current processes demonstrated on this slide here, and at a very simplistic level, it illustrates what occurs now. And pharmacy teams have long been doing a good job of documenting incidents when they occur and using that information to inform their analysis and learning and improvement at a local level within their own individual practices. The opportunity with CQI Plus is to expand that circle of learning so that we can all learn from each other. And so let me show you what that looks like. You'll see here on this slide, replacing the paper-based system with a software platform not only gives pharmacy teams the ability to be empowered to understand trends within their own practice, but of incidents and close calls, but they will continuously contribute anonymously to a national data set where aggregate information can be analyzed for opportunities for improvement, and they can be communicated back to your team. So this is really the opportunity to learn from your colleagues, not only within Alberta or your local geographic area, but also across Canada. The current national database has over 400,000 medication incidences captured within it. That's a lot of power to learn from those errors. So trends you may not have seen yet in your pharmacy may be identified through the national database, and you have the power to take proactive steps to address them. This database is maintained by the Institute of Safe Medication Practices, or ISMP Canada, and ISMP Canada analyzes the information in their database, and they issue things like safety bulletins, safety briefs, and national snapshots that help healthcare teams make better decisions around patient safety. So one of the questions you might have is, what can I do to prepare for CQI Plus? So the CQI Plus requirements are outlined in the CQI Plus guide, and I would encourage everyone here to take some time to begin to review this information and reflect on how it can best be incorporated into your own unique practice. A key decision that you'll have to make is the selection of your platform. And there are a few options available to you, and ACP has created requirements for the platforms to ensure that they'll meet your needs. Within the guide, we've actually identified 3 different platforms that do meet the requirement, and they're certainly worth investigating. From there, you'll need to consider if or how your platform will affect your privacy impact assessment. And then you'll need to ensure your existing policies and procedures reflect your expectations for CQI Plus. ACP has updated our policy and procedure template to assist you with that. Team members will need to complete training, which consists of reviewing the standards, the guide, and your policies. Also, ACP recently focused on CQI Plus in the most recent edition of Full Scale, which, Barry, was last week, right? Yeah. So if you haven't seen that yet, make sure you search out some that Full Scale. There's some great articles. Some of your colleagues from right here in Calgary are also represented in that Full Scale. So lots of opportunity to learn from each other. In the future, we'll also be sharing a series of short videos to support pharmacy teams in implementing CQI Plus. You'll also want to start thinking about your safety self-assessment, the tool we discussed earlier, to allow you to self-reflect on your practice environment and its safety. And continue, of course, your quarterly reviews with your staff to include CQI Plus. On this slide, we do have our website for CQI Plus, and I encourage everyone to take some time and navigate to this website, review the guide and the other resources that are there. There's a quick start checklist, and we stole that from Apple computers, by the way, the quick start, and the question and answer document that should address common questions for you. Of course, do reach out to ACP with any other questions that you might have as well. Thank you for the opportunity to give you a brief update on CQI Plus. That takes us to a short break. We're going to take a 10-minute break at this time, and then we're going to come back and have a panel discussion. Do feel free to grab some more food or drinks, whatever's available, and visit with your colleagues. Thanks very much.
Hi again, everybody. My name is Barry Strader. I am the Communications Director for the Alberta College of Pharmacy. It's my pleasure to be the moderator for our panel discussion tonight. I'd like to echo the previous comments, just showing our appreciation for everyone who came out in person here in Calgary and who are participating virtually. We appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening. Just to let you know what we've got set up here, if you do have a question for the panel this evening and you are in the room, we have two mic runners who are going to watch for you to raise your hand, and they'll come over with the microphone. We have Leslie from the ACP team over here, and from ACP Council we have Nina. So they will have their eyes peeled in the room here. So if you have a question, just raise your hand, and one of them will come over and help you out. If you are taking part online, we have the chat available for you. If you have a question, just enter it into the chat, and we'll get to as many of those online questions as we can. Okay, so I'm going to kick things off here, and we were talking about leadership for the most part in our presentation earlier tonight, and I just wanted to go across the panel and get your thoughts on what are some qualities in pharmacy professionals that make them good leaders. And Brad, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Barry. As I think back over my career and some of the folks that mentored me and were really good role models, I would say that the things that sort of come to mind would be a passion for the profession, and critical thinking skills, pursuit of excellence. Those would be the things that come to mind with folks that I learned a lot from over my career.
And those are the kind of qualities that rub off on your team too, aren't they? When you show that passion and the critical thinking. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, it really sets the stage, and everybody kind of rises up and gets on the same page and works towards the same goals. So it's very powerful.
Great. Okay, how about yourself? What are some qualities you look for in a pharmacy professional when it comes to leadership?
Thanks. I would say one of the main things that comes to mind for me is courage. I think for a lot of individuals, courage is a really important part of being a professional, whether it's advocating for your patient, maybe advocating for yourself or for a colleague. I think it's a really important part of leadership, especially within the pharmacy.
Monty?
I think the pursuit of quality patient care. I mean, a good pharmacy leader recognizes sort of the nexus between good clinical care and operations, and kind of understands that balance, and works to always keep the patient in mind, no matter what you're thinking about, or no matter what sort of detail in the pharmacy or in their practice they're looking at. You always have sort of the patient in the back of your mind as the end user of whatever service is being provided.
Okay, and Jeff, can you share what qualities of leadership you see in pharmacy professionals?
You know, I think there's certainly the quality of altruism. And I always find it remarkable how our practitioners across Alberta are leaders within their own practices and making a difference in the lives of those they care for. And that really comes from a sense and a duty to do what's best for your patients. So I see that as a quality, and I think it's an opportunity for all of us in our own practices.
Okay, we have a question from our online audience, and I will just fire away here. When will pharmacy technicians be certified to give injections? It's long past due. Injections are a technical task. I want to do medication management, which is what pharmacists should be doing. So this is obviously from a pharmacist. Brad, you've got a mic ready. Let's hear from you.
Well, that's a great question. We've been doing some work on that. We also understand that there's other jurisdictions that have the authorization. So when I say we've been doing work on this particular project, it means that we've done environmental scanning. We've started to build a proposal because this is a regulatory change and it requires cabinet approval, quite frankly. And so The way that works is that you have to develop a really good story for government, because they've got a laundry list of things to make changes in regulations for. And so you have to have a very good case for how, that the change will benefit Albertans. And so, you build your case. Right now, we've been told there's not much opportunity to get changes to regulations, but we don't know when that opportunity will arise. So we're going to build a proposal, and then when an opportunity does arrive, we'll have the opportunity to put it in. But it's certainly something that we've been thinking about and doing some work on. So.
I've got another question from the online audience. Monty, I think this one is going to be for you. It's a standards-related question. Should homeopathic medications be kept separately from Schedule III medications?
So, I mean, the standards give you two choices, right? You can either have a separate section dedicated to homeopathy that's labeled as such, or else if they are integrated into the section, whether it's with Schedule III drugs or with like non-scheduled, unscheduled products, they have to be clearly indicated as homeopathic. So it has to be, through signage or something on the shelf that, we've seen several different ways of doing that we found acceptable. Sometimes like a little dangler on the tag, this is homeopathic product, or maybe a tag next to it, or something that's very visible. So I don't think it's a problem to do that per se, as long as there's proper identification.
Just that distinction has to be there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question to Kay. You were presenting on a lot of those tools and resources for licensees so that they can be successful. You talked about the licensee and proprietor education programs. And I know there's been a little bit of confusion among some licensees out there about, whether they have to take the program, which program they need to take, that sort of thing. Why is it so important, though, that licensees take this new version of the program to be able to successfully renew their pharmacy license?
Thanks, Barry. If you look at ACP's current strategic plan, one of the things that's been identified there is that licensees truly are a critical success factor in the pharmacy. Often our high-performing pharmacies have high-performing licensees. So those individuals really are critical to the quality of care that a lot of patients will experience. And some people are great at that. Some people maybe not so good at knowing all of the aspects of being a good licensee, but it doesn't mean they can't get there. And so with that little bit of education, it'll often support a lot of individuals. So one of the reasons that we have the new program that we do now is partially because we have the new standards that were implemented, so the new program reflects that. We also developed the licensee competencies framework, so that is also foundational to what that new program is. And so as we were looking at making those changes, it gave us opportunity to sort of reimagine those programs and make them much more sort of case-based, much more practical to scenarios that are seen in the pharmacy. And we've certainly heard some feedback from individuals that they have cases there that have really made them think about experiences that they've had in the past. So yes, it is very important to take the new program. Our pharmacy renewal opened on April 1st, and so we've already had a few people saying, well, I took Part A or Part B, and does that work with my application? No, you have to take one of the new programs, and that's really the reason behind it.
And if you haven't yet, as you said before, get on it soon.
Get started, please do.
Nina, we have a question over here.
It was just a follow-up to the homeopathic. Is there a reason why herbals weren't included in that? Is it because of the NPN numbers, or why are herbals allowed to be stored right next to a cough medicine, but homeopathy isn't?
Thanks for the question. It's a good question. I think a couple of things that we considered. One was public confusion, and we'd certainly heard quite a bit of public confusion with regards to homeopathy and the value it might or may not play within treating your symptoms or whatever illness you might have. The second that we considered was just the level of evidence and just the lack of evidence, or maybe more specifically, the scientific community being very critical of homeopathy. There are some herbal products out there with more of a level of evidence, and so and recognizing that the public is seeking some of those and using some of those, we didn't address herbals, but it's certainly something that we can monitor and watch for in the future as well.
Okay, Nina, do you have another question here?
Hi, guys. My name is Bara. I just have a question. I'm not sure if it's relevant. I'm curious, just want to know if a pharmacist would have authorization or permission to administer Botox. If anything coming. Sorry.
Thank you for your question. There's no question that's not relevant in the room. Well, there might be some. The question is whether pharmacists have the authorization to inject Botox. If it's aesthetics, it falls under the personal services regulation, which so under that regulation, we're not allowed to. If it's being used for a therapeutic indication, at this point in time, we have no competencies developed or anything around the administration of Botox for a therapeutic condition. So we're not currently allowed to inject Botox. I don't know if Jeff wants to add anything to that or not.
Okay. I've got another question from the online audience, and Kay, I'm going to guess this one's for you. Is there a list of pharmacies that are looking to close that can be shared with prospective new licensees and proprietors so that they can transition to a new owner to help with continuity of care?
So is there a list of
Is there a
pharmacies?
list that exists of pharmacies that are looking to close?
No, I guess is the short answer. No, there isn't a list. You know, there's certainly a requirement to provide notification to ACP if a closure is forthcoming, but we don't have an active list, and if we did, it would be in a very short time frame, really, in which we would likely know that. So, no, the short answer is there isn't one.
Yeah, like a scenario where a pharmacy was planning on closing months ahead of time probably is pretty rare, I would think.
Certainly, from our perspective of what we would know about, I mean, one of the most recent changes we made was having access to any pharmacies that hold a compounding and repackaging license, and so anybody can log into our secure access of our website and be able to find those pharmacies, but that's the closest I can think of being able for us to share more information about a pharmacy, but nothing related to closure.
Great. Doing a quick scan of the room to see if there's any hands up. We have one in the back. Go ahead, Nina.
Hi, my name is Ruben. I'm a pharmacy technician. My question is, are there any future plans to expand the criteria for licensees in order to allow pharmacy technicians to become licensees in the future?
Hi, Ruben. Thanks for the question. I guess the short answer is we don't have any plans currently for that. I think it falls a little bit in the same category as administering drugs by injection. It requires regulatory change. So it's a long road. And as I mentioned, you need to have a good story for why the government should allow it and what the benefits would be to Albertans from a health perspective. And that can be a tough argument if they've got, very significant patient care issues that they're making regulatory changes for. You just can't get an audience, with them. Having said that, I think we still have a lot of work to do in community practice, allowing pharmacy technicians to practice to full scope. So, certainly from our perspective, we'd like to see those things happen. We'd like to see potentially pharmacy technicians in operations supervisor roles. We have a pharmacy technician in this province that is a proprietor that owns a pharmacy. So there's a number of opportunities for pharmacy technicians beyond being a licensee. So at this stage, we're not looking at it, but in the future sometime, couldn't say, could happen. But again, we need to have a very, very compelling story for any changes we make to regulations and how that would benefit Albertans. So.
Great. Leslie, we have a question in the middle here.
Hi, my name's Helen. I'm a pharmacist. I just had a question regarding, like, if you guys could give more clarity regarding the patient must be aware of how AI is being used, and what that, like, entails. Because what if it's somebody who doesn't have any context for what AI even is, right? But it's like a standard, say, process integrated into your documentation, for instance. And just kind of as a small secondary question, is there any plans to develop like a technology innovations or AI type framework or guideline of any kind?
Yeah, so I think, sorry, what was the first part of the question again, quickly? Yes. Okay. So it depends on what you're using it for, right? And if you're gonna, like, you have to be careful with some of these applications because data is stored somewhere else, and you have to know it's being transmitted. It has to be secure in that. So I don't know that you need to use it all the time if you're transcribing data and it's just sort of locally transcribing it. But if you're using it to get if there's some possibility that their data could be stored somewhere else, even if it's done, you have to be cautious too to make sure that there's no identifying data being sent out there. But I think you just use your judgment and see if there's a possibility that it may impact the way that they view this, and if they're concerned that they don't want their data used that way, then you'd have to respect that. And as far as guidance, I think we have published some information about that, and I think there's plans to develop more as kind of the situation evolves. Like I said, it's not identified in standards, and I don't know that it needs to be at this point. I think it's more about looking at the core standards that we have and making sure that they apply and they're applied correctly in this case. But I think there's definitely an opportunity to contextualize those, within the context of AI and provide some additional guidance there. So I think we'll see more of that as it evolves.
Nina, do you have someone in the back? No. Oh, okay. I thought you just moved over to a new position for another question. But I have a question from our online audience. And this one relates to CQI+. So this could be for Jeff. As CQI+ transmits to the NIDR, which is incidents for community pharmacies, does CQI+ apply in any way to institutional or PCN practice environments?
Yeah, great question. And the NIDR is really for community pharmacies. So CQI+ and the concepts of CQI+ certainly apply in any practice where any of us might work. Not all those practices will require a specific platform, though. Hospitals use Alberta Health Services uses their own platform, and they have some internal processes for how they roll up and look at their data. And some of their incidents are different or of a different nature than what we might see in community practice. PCNs aren't specifically required to have a platform either. But one thing to make note of is that anyone can actually submit to a medication incident that they've experienced or found through directly into the NIDR. So if you go to the ISMP website, it is possible, if you wanted to contribute an important medication incident, then you certainly could that way as well.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Leslie, we have a question over here.
Thanks. No surprise, I have two questions. The first question, and they're both based off of, I'll say, what's going on in Ontario. So one of the things that I think we don't need change of regulation for is to be able to have more visibility into council meetings. And Ontario, the regulator in Ontario has virtual ability for the public to attend council meetings. Wondering if there's any plan to be able to open up that attendance so that we don't have to travel to Edmonton. That's question one. And do you want the second question at the same time?
Well, maybe I'll just answer the first question first. We do conduct council meetings virtually. We have done that. We're also employing sometimes email ballots to make it easier for councillors travel, and so they're not away from their families and things. So we are trying to, lessen the personal burden for councillors. So I guess the short answer is that we are using some virtual technology for meetings, and we have done that. So we're going to continue to explore those opportunities. But there still will be some in-person meetings, but we're certainly exploring using virtual ones for some of the meetings that we're conducting anyways.
But Bruce, are you asking about being able to view a meeting, like just as a member of the public, a regulated member, that sort of thing, right? Yeah.
Sorry, Bruce. Thanks, Barry.
That's okay.
I don't have an answer to that. We haven't certainly discussed it at council that I'm aware of. So, I guess if it comes up, then that's where the discussion will take place.
You had a second question, Bruce?
I do. It's a similar question that I ask whenever I have an audience, and always with the college in mind. In Ontario, there's been lots of focus on preferred provider networks and potential for either government regulation or regulatory standards. So I'm just wondering if the college is looking at what that potential is, or what would be required to try and maintain that patients should have a choice about from whom and where they receive their care.
Yeah, I'll start, and Jeff can probably jump in on this one as well. It's a difficult problem, and it's a difficult problem across the country. And you mentioned Ontario, Bruce, and that's probably where the biggest challenge is right now. So across the country, the regulatory authorities have PPNs top of mind, and we're monitoring very closely what's happening with the Competition Bureau, because they've now launched an investigation into one of the PPNs. So really hoping, with fingers crossed, that some solid recommendations come out of that, which would be very helpful from a regulatory perspective.
And Bruce, I'll just add to that. We did have the opportunity to meet with the Competition Bureau of Canada last year, and that was valuable because we were able to share some perspectives with them from regulated members, and we were also able to share some research that had been performed in the primary literature with them as to the impacts of PPNs. So I know they found that valuable. I know you also probably saw this week that the Competition Bureau is continuing, or maybe more targeting their investigation into some of the practices of the PPN. So where we look forward to seeing what comes of that work, and they're certainly keeping us informed too.
All right, Leslie, you've got a question here.
Yeah, you might want to keep the mic, Jeff. Just a quick question regarding the CQI Plus program. I'm receiving some questions from our members some of the success around CQI and the success of the NIDR and the platforms. The anonymity is such a key piece to all of this. I'm just wondering on behalf of our members as to the reach that the the practice consultants will have at the pharmacy level when they come in to visit to request access to the whichever platform they decide to do the reporting on.
No, great question, Dwayne. And largely what you experience today will be similar to what you experience tomorrow. So the practice consultants will still come in and have a conversation about your quality assurance processes, quality improvement processes. They'll want to understand, are you meeting with the team? What kind of errors are occurring? What have you learned through those errors? Things of that nature. So the intent isn't to kind of pull down your entire profile of everything you've reported, but really to, and certainly not to blame and shame, but really to support that education and learning opportunities. And, I think your members are well positioned already because they're doing those things, right? And so that will continue to be an ongoing conversation. And it's an important conversation to have with the PPCs because not only can information spread through sharing it to then IDR, but the PPCs certainly work to try and share any sort of learnings that may be applicable to other pharmacies confidentially through what they may discover has been problematic in areas, things like that of that nature.
All right, we have a question again here.
Yeah. Hi, sorry, I just had a follow-up question in regards to that, the CQI, because it mentioned it was a national system. So I'm kind of wondering where Alberta is in terms of adapting that as part of their standards. Like, has other provinces already done that, or no, we're like the first? And also if there's any kind of consideration towards certain segregation of certain issues when they publish, the notice of key or recurrent issues, because obviously the scope of practice in Alberta is so much different from most other provinces. Thanks. Thank you.
Great question. First, to begin with, where are we at in the country? We've had the opportunity to learn from a lot of our colleagues. Nova Scotia has really been the leader within Canada here. They've had a system for well over 10 years now. And many of the other provinces also have systems in place, including Ontario, all the Atlantic provinces, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. BC and Alberta are kind of next in line. Sometimes it's good to be first. Sometimes it's good to learn from the mistakes of others. So certainly we worked really closely with other provinces to understand where they thought they could have done things differently and to understand some of the challenges that they encountered. One of the big learnings we took away was not to impose a single system because that resulted in dual reporting for many pharmacists and pharmacy technicians out there. So we wanted to avoid that because we didn't see the value in it. So it's certainly been helpful. BC will follow us, along with Quebec will eventually follow us too. As we look to, I'm sorry, what was the second part of your question?
When they look at the data in terms of giving us as pharmacies feedback, if it's kind of separated based off of practice.
Yeah, no, I'm actually really glad you asked that question because we had to drive change in the national database to more meet the needs of Alberta. And so that was certainly part of the process of getting to where we're at today. So the national database has changed to more represent practice here in Alberta and to represent our requirements. And that's going to be an ongoing conversation. Not a lot had changed in the national database for some years, and so we've requested a forum to be able to create change as we learn lessons, as we implement CQI+. And we've certainly requested more learning and analysis come from that data. And some of the publications from ISMP lately have been really strong, really informative, and I think we'll, if you have the chance to review some of them, they'll certainly help you in your practice. Another thing is they're going to produce an Alberta-specific report for us, which, we don't want pharmacists and pharmacy technicians to feel like this is going into a black hole. We really want information to come back so that you can be proactive in preventing medication errors.
All right, we have a question from Patrick.
Not really a question. I just want to, oops, sorry. I wanted to answer or make reference to Bruce's question. So with council, every meeting is open. There's only a small section that's council only. To your point, it's in person most of the time. We are trying to do more of a hybrid thing, but for the most part, it's in person. Anybody can come to them. They just have to reach out to ACP and express interest, and then you'll get the information about when to be there. So getting finding the right tool to be able to have people hybrid in the meeting itself, so in person and virtual. In our experience so far, now going through COVID, it was different because it was all virtual, but we haven't had a really good setup yet, or a good meeting feeling, if I can use that term, when you have some people virtual and some people in person. It fragments and fractures the meeting a little too much, so we haven't had a lot of success with that hybridized piece yet. But in the future, I mean, I only have a year and a bit left, but in the future, the hope would be that there's more virtual and hopefully more people that want to come. I've been on council for almost 5 full years, and I've only had one person ever come to a council meeting that wasn't part of council. And we have meetings in Calgary and Edmonton and other places. So it's up to people and their interest as well. Everything is completely transparent with council, except obviously those things that are in camera. So our minutes are out there. You can see everything that's going on. Okay, and lastly, good job, Calgary and area. Edmonton last night, I think there were maybe 3 questions from the audience. You guys have surpassed that, so well done.
Patrick is like one of his colleagues from down south. He's trying to run for a 3rd term, though, aren't you?
And there were more than 3 questions in Edmonton last night, Patrick. But very good participation tonight, though. I do agree with you there. And speaking of that, we're pretty much at the end of our evening. It's just a couple of minutes to 9 o'clock. So I just wanted to wrap things up with one final question that I'll ask the whole group, and I'll start down the line with Jeff. If there's one key takeaway, one thing that you want our audience to go home with that'll really, make a difference for them, what do you think that key takeaway is?
As you reflect on when you are working through CQI Plus to implement it, I really encourage you to think carefully about how you can be proactive with it and how you can take it as an opportunity, not just to assess errors when they happen, but how you might be able to proactively prevent errors from using the information and having that team-based discussion with the folks in your pharmacy.
Okay, Monty?
Yeah, so I think, just building on the AI question there, that the standards are meant to be future-proof in the way that you kind of stick to the basics and to the core standards. So if you have an innovation that you want to measure whether or not it meets the standards, just kind of strip it down and look at the standards about things like confidentiality, about or professional relationships, that sort of thing, and look at it through that lens. And if you have questions about it or you're not sure, by all means contact ACP and we can work to clarify it. But like I said, with any new innovation, any new question, look at the standards and see, am I meeting the standards? So it doesn't really matter if it's a new concept or an old concept.
Kay, what's your key takeaway tonight?
Well, in case I've been too subtle already, please, if you are a licensee, get going on the licensee education program. If you're not a licensee, have a look at it. See if it's a learning opportunity that you think could be of benefit for you, because we've heard that from others as well. But yes, if you are a licensee, start now. Don't wait till May 30th. Start right away.
And I'm going to give another plug too. That we've heard some really great feedback from those who have taken the program already, especially about the case study area, which has been really beneficial. So, Brad, the last word goes to you.
Yeah, thanks. I think, we've got some challenges in the profession right now, and I think it's a great time for leaders to step up. And like I said, we know that high-performing pharmacies have high-performing licensees and highly effective teams. So, stay resilient. We've been through a lot of ups and downs, certainly in my career, and we always seem to come out of it. So stay resilient, focus on leadership. It's the best way to get through tumultuous change. So that's what I would leave as my final comment.
All right. Thanks, Brad. Thanks, everybody on our panel tonight. Great discussion this evening. I want to give a special thanks to Leslie and Nina for running the mics this evening. Great job getting to all those questions. Nice round of applause like that. Also want to thank our ACP communications team, Jenna and Devin over in the corner there, keeping everything going. And most importantly, thanks to all of you for coming out tonight, whether you showed up here in person in Calgary or online. We really appreciate your participation, your engagement, all the great questions, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. Thanks very much. Have a great night.